So scholarly publication historically had several functions. One, of course, we mentioned it, is dissemination of research results. Sorry. It is also essential for prioritizing discovery. In other words, being recognized as being the first to publish on a new discovery. So that's huge. It's been like history of science is paved with conflicts about who was the first to do something. It's also helped in the grouping of community by institutionalization of research, mostly through universities and faculties, but not only. We've seen the Royal Society of London. So the prestige of the journal was reflected on the scholar. So for reputation, it was really important. And also there's a big part of the way it is accepted, like with a peer review, and the journals manage peer review process. So there's really the construction of being judged or chosen by our community, and it's based on trust. So it's important to keep those in mind, because it has lots of effects of how today works. So this is a funny drawing. Of course, I'm not going to go into the details, but you can click the link to have the whole story here. But basically, as the time went by and more people tried to enter academic societies and try to publish, they decided to create a peer review process. And we're seeing the reviewer as a defender of the science reputation. So basically the peer reviewers were the first superhero of science. So to do peer reviews, there's many approaches to do that. The first one, single blind, is really the most common one. So first, this is a service provided for free to the journal board of editors by the reviewer. So in fact, when you think about it, the public pays for it indirectly for the time of the researcher. So for single blind, this is the most common one nowadays. We know who the authors are, but we don't know who the evaluators are. So this is the most common approach. So because it's anonymous, there is a bit more abuse of evaluators, and it's been documented in research that most harassed are women and minorities. Bias exists and have been demonstrated. Famous names, institutions help the process. This is a Matthew effect. The rich gets richer. So some people came up with a double blind option where the evaluators are anonymous, or at least we don't know who and they don't know who the author are. So the double blind seems the best option, but in fact, it's fairly easy to guess who it is from. So it's not that blind. So there's a kind of a combination of the two with the open. Both are known, at least the content of the evaluation is known, not necessarily the evaluator's identity. And of course, the authors are known. So open is fine, but reviews are more superficial because they know it will be public. And reviewers are less comfortable criticizing out of kindness or for fear of reprisal. Only the content of the evaluation is available, seems more appropriate and leads to thorough evaluation. So how to improve peer review? We all know that it has lots of drawbacks. There's been scandals of reproducibility crisis, and many had a lot to do with statistics. So now some journals ask for a statistical reviewer. In our core faculty or imaging community, maybe we can push for technical reviewers. And we suggested it as a CNSP to CFI a few years back. Also, there's pre-registration of studies. Psychology field was one of the first to come up with that, where you can have an hypothesis testing instead of fishing expedition. And so it allows to commit to publish even negative results, which we all know can be an issue not to publish them. And also there's post-publication evaluation with, for example, peer or a retraction watch. That can be also different ways to kind of judge a paper. So what are the peer review limitations? I mentioned already a few there. It's really a burden on researchers. Editors are complaining that they have to ask to a lot more people to get a positive answer for to accept to do a peer review. It's really a bottleneck. There's lots of evaluation delays. They are getting longer and longer. And in science, you know, every month counts. So even if it's changing, there is usually no access to source data. It's really still mostly based on trust. It does not detect fraud. I didn't show it here, but there's a very nice study done on that, where a paper containing 8 known mistakes was submitted to many reviewers, and none of them detected all the mistakes, with the majority detecting only 1 or 2. So it was eye-opening. There's a tendency to cronyism or conflict of interest. So basically, you help your friends and you destroy your enemy. So there's poor evaluation of standards, method, and quality control. And this is in bold here because this is really concerning our community a lot. It flavors normal science. It's make it very conservative. So everything disruptive can have a hard time to go through. I mentioned a couple of bias, the Matthew effect, meaning that you're unconsciously give better reviews to people that are known or coming from renowned institutions or have a nice CV. Now, there's also a big question of who selects the reviewers. So now it seems that less and less people accept to review because there's lots of demands. And what happens when the paper is rejected? You know, you've all been through that you have to resubmit somewhere else and go again. So it slows everything down. So basically now peer review today seems more like a real crazy, dangerous journey. Also about rejection. So the one thing to know, and this is a graph taken from a paper from 2008, the higher the impact factor of a journal, the higher the rejection rate. So I will discuss more about this journal impact factor indicator later in the presentation. But back in 2008, for a high impact factor journal, the rejection rate was about 80%. Nowadays, it's closer to 95%. So the rejection is pretty high, but the most difficult journal is a journal of universal rejection. So you're sure to be rejected there. It's very funny to look at. So now, with some of the information that we discussed now, today, how are scholarly publications meeting the needs of the community? So what is working well and what needs to be done according to you on that aspect, especially in the light of our community, like scientific platforms, scientists, and so on and so forth?